I am really excited to be able to speak to Jean-Marie. He is a legendary recording engineer, and it's just going to be a privilege to talk to him, to hear his story, working with everyone from Teddy Riley, Michael Jackson. The list is endless. So I'm going to bring him in, and we're going to start the interview now.
What's good with you?
Good, well. Real pleasure to meet you. How you doing?
Blessed and highly favored. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Are you in the East or West or Midwest or?
I am in sunny Los Angeles.
Okay, okay. Not sunny from the fire, right?
No, it's crazy. It's really nutty. It's really bad.
Wow. I used to live 3 years in Redondo Beach. Before
Beautiful down there.
Yeah, but where is it really burning? What area is it really?
Well, I live up in Valencia, close to Magic Mountain.
Okay.
And there was one really close by to us.
Wow.
But it's like 70 fires all over the place.
My goodness. Wow. Well, I hope you guys stay safe. It was never like that when I was there. We had a lot of smog, but never the fires at this degree.
It's bad. It could come from all directions.
Wow. But you know, yeah. But yeah, I didn't want to distract. Really, it's a pleasure again to get you on our show. We've for those of us who have been fans of New Jack Swing, it's you've got the Elvis followers and you've got the disco supporters and ABBA and stuff, and the music that Guy and Teddy came up with created a following, and so with that following comes everyone has been a part of it. And for those who are also Michael Jackson fans, you tend to get an album and you go through and see all the people on it, and your name became very consistent with a lot of stuff that we were seeing, some of the big stuff. So but back in those days, not much social media, so we couldn't tell who you were. I didn't think you were French, so but
I got some stories for you on that one. Oh,
yeah. But it's what we always like to do is just actually start from the beginning, like where you're from and your journey into it. So I mean, where exactly are you from?
I was born in France.
Okay.
So I was born in France, but my heritage is Croatian, so I'm more Croatian than anything else. I was just born in France, so my lineage is Croatian.
Okay.
And then we moved to Hoboken.
Where's that?
In New Jersey.
Okay. Okay.
And think in 1968, I believe. Okay. And then around 68, 69, we moved to the Jersey City projects. And there's like a story to this because you can hear my accent is more very urban.
Yeah.
And there's a big story to that when you were talking about you didn't know where I came from.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a big thing when I left Teddy. When I went to California, they asked me, goes, yo, so tell me about that female that works with Teddy Riley. I said, what? He goes, Jean-Marie. I said, dude, I'm Jean-Marie.
Oh, Jean-Marie. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And they said, oh, Jean-Marie, that's you. I said, yeah. Oh. And then the other one was I was Haitian.
Oh.
The other one I was working with, oh, my God, John Nettlesby and his partner, who did the Coca-Cola commercial a long time ago. My old manager, Patty, said, we got a session for you. I said, cool. So I talked to John Nettlesby, and I'm talking to him on the phone. I said, yeah, brother, I'm really looking forward to meeting you, blah, 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 blah. So we went into the studio, and he came in. He goes, I'm looking for Jean-Marie. He goes, I'm right here. And he walked out, and he walked back in. He goes, brother, I'm really sorry. I thought you were black.
Oh.
I said, no. I said, I'm white. I said, I talk urban because of where I grew up. I grew up in the projects. I grew up with many, many beautiful families from Egypt to anywhere in the Middle East, to African-American families, to down south black families. There was so much culture around me. And I think that's why Teddy picked me up so much, because he really cared that I cared. Yeah. About the music and about the transition. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the, when there's so many funny stories about when I started working with Teddy.
Okay. No, well,
it's so fun. But to answer the question, I was born in France. Heritage is Croatian. Grew up in Jersey City, and I'm a hip hop metalhead.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I was breakdancing and doing metal shows at the same time. But we were doing it differently because I wanted more of the funk and soul into the rock. Well, I could say rock instead of metal. Really, just have more distortion to it. And my best friend Joe Murner goes like this. He said, "Dude, that's not for you." And I said, "You're probably right." He goes, "Just do what you love to do. It's music." So I just, I was still playing my band. I was thinking about this 6 months prior to making this final decision. I said to my best friend, I said, "Dude, I don't know what I'm going to do." He said, "Man, just go to your guitar teacher and see what he has to say." So this guy named Abel Dominguez said, "If you want to be," I said, "Look, man, I want to be behind the scenes. The group is not getting signed quick enough." We got signed and dropped at the same time. We were supposed to get signed to ACO, and somebody just took us we got taken advantage of. And I decided I want to be the guy behind the scene. I really love being in the studio. And I talked to Abel Dominguez, and Abel Dominguez turned around and said, he goes, "Look, man, why don't you go to school for audio engineering?" Which I did. And then when we got dropped, when we got signed, that's when I stopped working for the Hudson County Police Department.
Okay. So, but why necessarily did you want to go behind the scenes? I mean, most people are thinking limelight.
I didn't see myself shaking my ass at 50 years old up on stage.
So you were thinking ahead then. You were thinking in a band and thinking, I don't want to be doing this, touring us 50, 60, so let me.
Yeah. And also, I didn't to be honest with you, we got taken advantage of, and I wanted to be the person that would help the band members. And I still do this today. I learn from my mistakes. Just learn from my mistakes. So that's the other reason why I want to be the guy behind the scenes, to piss people off.
So, how long you went to audio engineering school? For how long were you then there for?
6 months, because I thought, so I went in there and they said that they were going to place me in an internship after I graduate. And there was a kid that was in my class that started working at Electric Lady. And I said, wait a minute, I'm looking at a bunch of kids graduating at the same time. And I don't know, and I didn't know how many recording studios there were. I said, let me take advantage of this. So in the beginning of the second semester, I went to look for an internship, and it was Crystal Sound Recording, I think on 20-something Street off of 10th. I started my internship there, and there was another girl named B. I forgot her last name. She was like the valedictorian of the school, and they chose her over me because of the grading.
Okay.
Then this girl, the studio manager, Abigail Reese, said, I don't like how this is going down. I want to give you an opportunity. So I went to Sigma Sound Studios, and it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. That's where I met Teddy Riley. That's where I got my chops. But that's a whole different story, man. That was everything that happened to me in that amount of time.
Yeah.
Was I got the job in 1990, May of 1990.
Wow.
May of 1991, towards the end of May in 1991.
Yeah.
I'm going to Japan on the guide tour. Hello? Yeah, I'm going to Japan on the guide tour. A month later, I'm working on the Michael Jackson record. So mine came really fast.
Okay. So if we go back,
my story is really an interesting one.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to hear it. So, what did she see in you that she said, "I want to get you into the studio"? Why you? It was just a bunch of others.
Well, there was me, B, and the owner really liked the girl more than he liked me.
Okay.
Not in that way, just because he was very strategic. He was very Steve Vaviakis, intelligent guy, makes rooms in still New York, I think. And he wants somebody that's on his level. I'm more of a musician.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And I feel things out a little bit more. I try to portray like a musician's lifestyle. I don't believe in a lot of things that they were teaching me in school, especially when I started working at Sigma Sound Studio. Everything came to fruition to me.
Mm. So were you picking it up quickly? Because if you, okay, was it because of being a guitarist and your amp and the sounds, or what was it about being on the turntables?
Well, it's just like me playing the guitar. I'm glad you brought that up. Being a musician, I didn't want to play anybody else's material except for mine. Maybe call me narcissistic about it, but I felt that I wanted to do my own material, and I had to learn my sounds on my own. I didn't know shit from Shinola, and I think that's what led me to think the way I did. Because when I started working. When I started working at Sigma, I met Tony Maserati, and I used to make fun of him. He's a very good friend of mine. Hold on one second. He's the one I met in July, and I say, everybody said, yo, that's Tony Maserati. He goes, Tony Maserati? Well, if he's Tony Maserati, I'm Johnny Ferrari. I used to make fun. He found out about it, and he thought he had a great kick out of it. And he started coming more in the studio. And Tony is very precise, very persnickety about what he wants in a session. And if it wasn't for him, I would have never met Teddy Riley. If it wasn't for him. Because like I told you, I started in May.
Yeah.
I'm a runner, basically. I'm like the T-boy in England, the T-boy, right?
Yeah.
I'm the general assistant that basically does all the runs. He didn't particularly like this one assistant that was on the session, and he called me in October. So now, mind you, May to October of 1990, he brought me in. He goes, just don't touch anything. I'm going to teach you how to engineer. I said, all right. So I started touching everything else when he walked out of the room just to piss him off. I went to the full force session, and I went in the full force session, and that's how I met, Bow-Legged Lou, Paul Anthony, Baby Jerry, the whole full force crew. They took me in, and they knew I was an assistant. They knew I just started out. They didn't mind at all, but they loved my energy. I made them laugh.
Okay.
Anytime when they needed a run, when I wasn't the assistant, when they were doing some other session, I'll be the first one to bring their stuff back. They really loved that. They loved that tenacity. And there was another guy named Glenn Rosenstein that really was a major fixture in my short stint at Sigma. So when I met Teddy, they were doing Keith Sweat next door. And there was this one dude playing the shit out of the Hammond organ. And I said, yo, man, you're a bad motherfucker, man. He goes, yo, you're the shit. So I brought my guitar out and I started playing with him. It was Teddy.
Wow.
I didn't know. I said, he goes, Tony goes, do you know who that is? I said, no. He goes, that's Teddy Riley. He goes, yeah, man, he's amazing. No, that's Teddy Riley. I wanna, this. I said, really? Wow. So I was totally oblivious to it. And he loved that because I treated him like a normal person.
Yeah.
So that's my introduction to Teddy. The next time I met up with Teddy was, I heard the I Don't Want to Fall in Love remix. And I came running in. He goes, yo, that shit's crazy. And it was Teddy in there. He said, John, you like this? I said, man, this thing is amazing. This shit's dope. When's this coming out? And he passed me off to Dad. He goes, I got another copy. Why don't you listen to that for a while? 2.5, 3. So what happened was, I was doing a practice session. And around the same time that Teddy was working with the next Keith Sweat record. And I'm doing this mix and all like that. And they said, runner for Studio B, I think. It was Studio B, or I think it was Studio A or Studio B. I think it was Studio A or Studio 1. I ran in there and said, yo, what's going on? He goes, we need something from Carnegie Deli. And Teddy says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm the runner for tonight, so I got to go. He goes, runner? Because I thought you were in the studio. He goes, yeah, I'm in the studio. He goes, but I'm doing a practice session. He goes, you're doing a practice session? So the next thing I ran to Carnegie Deli. Nobody was in Studio One when I dropped all this stuff because they want you in Studio 2. I said, oh shit, Studio B. I said, oh shit. Teddy was like this, and he hit play, and he turned and goes, that's what I want. And it was the mix that I was doing, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just practicing.
Oh.
And that led me to do the Let's Chill session, which was supposed to be on the New Jack Swing soundtrack that Keith Sweat was supposed to do. Unfortunately, I think Teddy got the phone call that following week or following 2 weeks that he had to do the Michael Jackson stuff. He went to soundtracks, and then he went to California right afterwards, from what I heard. And I didn't see Teddy till that following May. And then Teddy came back. He said, look, I want you to work with me, because Dave Way was leaving at that time. And Dave, I had to fill in some big shoes, man. I still try to fill in those big shoes. Dave Way is amazing to me. He's probably one of the most amazing mixers I've ever met.
Yeah, I think as I said, a lot of us who know a lot of some of the Teddy stuff would know that Dave Way was with him with Kissing Game and a lot of the early stuff.
He wrote the first verse for Kissing Game.
Yeah. So we've seen him. So he was doing the mixing and engineering alongside Teddy with in those late 80s, early 90s.
Yes. And from what I heard, he picked up Dave Way the same way he picked me up.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And it was Dave Way who said, yo, I think you should pick up Jean Marais. He seems like a good guy. Even
though you still were still new to the whole thing,
they didn't see it that way. They saw something different. And I can honestly say I was very blessed.
Wow.
That I didn't go by the rules.
But did you know how to do any of the mixing? Did you know how the calls? I mean, it's a big studio. Did you know?
Well, see, this is the thing. When Tony Maserati called me stealing the Pleasure Principle, we had the reels of Pleasure Principle in the tape locker, and he got in my ass saying, "Did you make a copy of this?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "No, you didn't. Stop lying." And he goes, "Well, let me hear it now. Since you got it up, let me hear it now." And he heard, he goes, "Do you know what the hell you're doing?" I said, "No." He goes, "What did you, I'm trying to understand." He goes, "All right, so all this is coming from the console?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You didn't use the pull tag?" I said, "Well, I don't know how to use it yet." And he said, "Dude, this is amazing. Keep at it, but make a backup reel out of anything that you do." I said, "Okay, I will." He said, "Bro, this is really amazing." He goes, "Where's your reverb returning?" I said, "Down here on the faders." He goes, "I never showed you that." I said, "No, I just didn't know how to patch it in here because I'm trying to figure out the patch bay." He goes, "Wait a minute." He goes, "We've been working 3 weeks together. Didn't I show you patch bay?" He goes, "Yeah, but I was trying to do something different." He goes, "Whatever you did was great."
Wow.
And then he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well," I said, "if I use the snare as an effect, I can bring it up on the console and re-EQ it." And that's where people started knowing me for the bussing, the parallel compression, and all of that. I was pretty much like the king of that.
Wow.
That started doing that. And if you talk to Dave Pensato, he would tell you that I was the king of the side compression, inline compression, parallel compression.
So you had just a knack for, like, especially because you didn't get taught the conventional way. You just try to figure out yourself. And
yep. And I watched this guy named Mike Barbiero do it one time, and I thought it was the most amazing drum sound I ever heard.
Wow. And so Teddy goes off, because we've heard his story about, going off to California. Michael Jackson's in Japan or somewhere, and then, while he's trying to come up with stuff, and he talks about how he had to rent out multiple studios from Q-Tip just to do mixes of both Jane Child and Keith Sweat and some of the Michael stuff. Were you in that same studio, or were you in a
No. Teddy, from what I remember, Teddy was doing all the Jane Child stuff at Soundtracks.
Okay.
And the Johnny Kemp stuff was done at Soundtracks. The stuff that he did for Michael, the demo stuff, was done, I believe, at Soundtracks. And he went out to LA, and the next thing you know is from what rumors had it to me this is years, I think a year or two after I started working with Teddy, they locked him into Larrabee, but he had all the rooms at Larrabee. He had all the rooms at Studio One, which was, I think, 2, I believe, or 1, 2, I think. And it was amazing. He was all over LA doing that Michael record. He was all over the place.
Well, so where were you then? So what were you up to during that time? So what, after seeing you, then he goes to see Michael. What were you up to then?
I started assisting more. And what happened was when Teddy came back, I think I'm going to be assisting Dave Way. It turns out that he said Luke Eben, who was an amazing producer, he was the studio manager at the time, but an amazing producer. He did a lot of stuff for Bon Jovi. Great guy. He said, no, Jean, he wants you to engineer. I said, get the fuck out of here. I ain't gonna engineer this shit. I don't know what I'm doing. And lo and behold, I became the engineer. I was nervous as hell. Ted didn't show up the first day, but Wayne Cobham did. And Wayne Cobham is Billy Cobham's brother. And Wayne was the tech for Teddy at that time. And he says, you're Jean-Marie, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, how do you like working here? I said, I like it. It's great. Gives me opportunity. You know, I'm still learning. He goes, Teddy's going to ask you to work with him. I said, what? He goes, Teddy Riley is going to talk to you, and he's going to try to steal you from here. And which he did. The next day he said, basically he came back for 1-2 days to take me. And after I said yes, he booked out another, he took all his stuff out and went to Soundtracks. He just booked out the studio to take me out.
Wow.
That was crazy. And I started working at Soundtracks, and that was it.
So,
and the rest is history.
So what about Dave Way then? Because did you know Dave Way prior to Teddy calling you out? Did you know him well and stuff?
I only met him when I was working with Teddy.
Okay.
And I got along with him really, really well. I got along with him really well. He's such an amazing individual. He has a very unique ear. An amazing ear. He's by far probably one of my heroes in my whole landscape of my career, because he was proficient enough as a musician, but also as a songwriter. He was a big Beatles fan, big Beatles fan. Yeah.
So what was the first thing that so here you are as an assistant, and next minute you've been called in by a legendary producer to come start working with him. Was there a sense of confidence or nerves, or what was going? How was it for you?
It was the oh shit moment.
Okay.
Really, and the first thing that we did was the Dog Me Out remix.
Okay, so
so we did the Dog Me Out remix, and there was a guy named Frank Fossenkemper. There was a guy that was also working with Teddy, and I thought he was going to get the job, not me. It turned out that Teddy took me and still. Mike Fossenkemper, really good mixer, really good touch. And it was at the same time, and we did the Dog Me Out remix. And the next thing we did Let's Stay Together remix. And I'm thinking that whatever, it's going to only be for a time being because he's going on tour. So Teddy said, hey, look, man, I want you to come with me because we're going to be doing the Michael Jackson stuff, and I want you to be a part of it. So during the day, you're going to be working, we're going to be working on Guy, and during the night, we're going to be working on Michael stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah, in Japan. We got no sleep whatsoever. I was hurting really bad. I said, okay, what the hell do you want me to do on the Guy tour? He says, I want you to have fun. I want you to do the stuff. I want you to do all my sound. Basically, he made a job for me. So what I was doing on the live shows, I was doing drops. And Teddy would be laughing on stage because I'm doing like live mixes. And he started shaking his head like, that's it. I pushed the 808 so loud. Oh, it was ridiculous. It was so much fun. But then, we had rehearsals pretty much every single day. Teddy was very diligent. Teddy was not messing around. He had his sound, has to have the sound right. The girls had to, the dancers had to be right. The musicians had to be right. And these were these top musicians, mostly from the church. The top musicians. We went through 3 drummers.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Jeff, I forgot Jeff's last name, but Jeff was the drummer originally. And then there was Vaughn, I think, was the other drummer. But the drummer that was the guy was Gerald Haywood. He was the production coordinator and assistant on the Guy tour. The most amazing drummer that you ever hear.
Wow.
Big Steve Gadd fan. He played his kick drum like a hi-hat pattern. That's how bad he was. I said, Teddy, why the hell wasn't he on the original drummer? He said, I didn't know. And that was it. He worked his way in there though. Everybody wanted Gerald. He was amazing.
So
pain in the butt, but he was amazing.
What is it that's so? I guess for some of us who don't know the technical side, what exactly was your role then when it comes to when you were on the Dog Me Out and the Less Chill remix? What were you actually doing?
Mixing. So mixing and recording and mixing at the same time, and basically learning. So you really learning. You
knew the consoles well enough to do it.
Hell no, not even. I just, like I said, I was barely there a year.
So was he looking for a prodigy then, or what was he? Was a white?
He liked the way he liked me as a person, but he also liked that I was busting my ass, and he liked the fact that what he was getting at, like, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and which made it even better because we would always beat each other's mixes out. Like he would try to one up me, and I would try to one up him. Me and him were mixing together. So there's so much to this, man. There's so much to this. There's so much background. It's unbelievable. So when Teddy picked me up, Teddy had a specific sound, and I catered to that sound real quick because it came off the SSL, not off the outboard gear. We didn't start using outboard gear till I think after the Barbie record.
Wow.
So a lot of stuff came off that console. A lot of the Michael stuff, that's a whole different story. That was
okay.
that was a whole different story.
No, we'll get there. But so I guess for those of us just so that what's really fascinating about your story is the fact that we've thought you know like Bruce Swedien, you knew your stuff, and he's like getting another expert to come join him, not realizing that he's like, okay, you don't know, I'm going to be doing the stuff, I'm going to teach you what I'm doing. But you said there was something in you that he just thought, you know what, if I gave him some of those tools, he can probably take it to another level.
I think what he did was I was unconventional.
Okay. Because
Teddy never really knew how to do the console. He figured it out on his own, just like how I did. And that's why that's why our tone, our mixing tones from 1991 till about 1994, 95, you can hear the transition of tones.
Yeah. So you're doing the Dog Me Out, you're doing the Less Chill, you're in Japan, and people like us are thinking, do you have an apartment? Do you have to, still pay your rent? Did you get a contract to make sure you're getting paid? Did you just get a passport?
That's so funny. It was so funny. I just turned around 21, 22 at that time, and I was about to get an apartment, but I didn't. I said, I talked to my mom. I said, look, I'm gonna stay at the house for a little bit, and she said, no problem. While I was going through school, I was doing my assistant stuff. I was really lucky that I stayed with my parents.
Okay.
As soon as I went to Japan, that was it. I stayed with Teddy pretty much almost 6-7 months before I got my apartment down in Virginia Beach. We were staying in hotels. I was living in hotels for like almost 6 months of my first career.
Because you were my career. Doing the tours and stuff?
I did.
Okay.
It was fun. It was awesome.
So as you were out on tour, were you picking up and learning and like, okay, now I've got this stuff, and it was coming to you?
Nope.
Okay.
I just went in there, and when we were doing the Dog Me Out remix, I wanted the kick drum to like really hit you underneath the gut rather than in your gut. So I was doing some other stuff underneath it. And Mike Fossenkemper came up with this thing from, this thing was like rotating some stuff. It was really, really cool. He brought that into the fold on that Dog Me Out remix. But I was coming with the ones and twos and the vocals being in front of your face.
Wow.
And that's what Teddy really liked. Also, I didn't use a lot of reverb because I hated it.
Wow. So yeah, go ahead.
At that time, everybody was using so much fucking reverb. It was, you can drown in it. You needed a life preserver. It was so much reverb.
And it is interesting because I think those of us who know his work can always tell that his sounds are very distinctive. Either, I know with Dave Way, there was the way the drums used to snare, you could tell that was a, you know, like a Do Me Right or Kissing Game, or you know, you could go through a lot of things, but you could hear the Teddy sort of, there's a way it sounded like, yeah, this is Teddy, you know, because there was a lot of imitation, but you could hear his style being very distinct and stuff.
Very much so. But you also can understand is how much I had to fill in those Dave Way shoes. It was tough because Dave had mind you, Dave had a better acknowledgement of it than I did. He was more of an assistant. He was an assistant longer than I was.
Yeah. So then you're working on the micro stuff. What were you working? I mean, what were you guys? What was the tracks you can remember those early days?
I wasn't even, mind you, I wasn't even supposed to be on the Michael Jackson stuff.
Oh, but in Japan, I thought he said, you know,
he was basically doing touch-ups. The songs were already picked.
Okay.
The songs were already picked. He was just adding more production onto it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was, like I said, but I wasn't even supposed to be on the Michael Jackson record.
Okay. So what happened then?
We came back from Japan. Teddy said, let's go to Larrabee. I want to introduce you to Bruce. I said, okay, great. He said, look,
Did
Sean.
you know who Bruce Houdini was?
Oh, yeah, I knew who Bruce was because I was a big Quincy Jones fan.
Okay.
And when you went to audio engineering school, you knew a lot of people that you admire. And I knew Bruce's work prior to the Michael stuff, more the Quincy stuff that I knew of because I was a big Quincy Jones fan growing up when I was a kid, you know, as a musician, because I was, even though I was into like the rock metal stuff and the hip hop stuff, I was also into jazz fusion. And I knew all of the Quincy stuff when I was a kid because of the people I used to hang out with. They were all musicians. They were all jazz guys. And my brother was a big jazz fan too. So Quincy was instilled with us, but I was mostly into the soundtracks that Quincy was doing, like Pawnbroker was one of my favorite soundtracks. Ironside was one of my favorite soundtracks. I wouldn't say The Wiz was one of my favorite soundtracks, even though it's iconic. I really liked what he did for the Bill Cosby Show back in the 70s. I really liked what he did with Sanford and Son back in the 70s. And I found out in my early teen years that was Quincy Jones, and I had a lot of respect for him. The Dude came out in '87. I was so invested in that record. What a beautifully mixed and mastered record, and that was Bruce Swedien.
Okay.
And I really loved what Bruce did. And then, you know, when I heard Stomp, everybody take it to the top, we're going on Stomp. That was amazing. That was Bruce Swedien.
Wow.
And that was Quincy Jones's production.
And so he says, I'm going to take you to see him. What are you thinking?
I'm just waiting to meet the man. I'm waiting to meet the man. He goes, listen, Bruce was so lovely. I love Bruce so much that there's a couple people. So that was, I believe it was either Thursday or Wednesday, if my memory serves me correct. I got pretty good information on some stuff that, you know, I got pretty good memory.
Yeah.
It was, we came in, we went in that night. Now, mind you, Teddy said, look, you're going to be my tech. You're not going to be my assistant, so you can get, you know, some money from the label because you're going to be working with me. I said, okay, no problem. So I didn't think I'm ever going to be on the Michael record. So I met Bruce, and he said, Bruce, this is my new engineer, Jean-Marie. He goes, oh, and he started talking, and, he's Swedish, and I told him I was Croatian. And we're listening to the stuff, and stuff sounds amazing. Now, mind you, coming from New York, I've never heard speakers sound like this. When I was in Larry, I was like, oh my God, I'm home. This is what a studio is supposed to sound like.
Wow.
See, now mind you, we didn't go down to Virginia Beach yet. We went from New York to Japan to California. And the first thing I seen when I got to California was Larrabee Studios. And I heard that, I said, this is what a studio is supposed to sound like. This is what I fell in love with. Right there when Bruce was playing it. And Bruce knew I was Bruce knew I was coming. He introduced himself, whatever have you. And then he goes, would you like to listen to some things? Said, yeah. So I'm like, and Teddy always loved, because I was always head nodding, always vibing, long hair. All of a sudden I felt this figure on the side of me, dancing alongside of me. It was Michael.
You're kidding me.
I said, oh shit, right? I said, okay, hey, how you doing, brother? You know what I'm saying? I'm very friendly that way. Everybody knows me. But inside, I'm like thinking, it's freaking Michael Jackson. I was more excited to meet Bruce than I was meant to see Michael. That's how it was. So we introduced ourselves, you know. Michael, sweetest man ever. God, he was the sweetest man that you ever want to meet in your life. So loving, so giving, so intelligent, highly intelligent. So anyway, so I met Bruce. He goes, well, I'll see you tomorrow. And at that time, we never really started work at 10 o'clock in the morning. With the Michael gigs, we started at 10 o'clock in the morning. That was because Bruce started at 10. He never worked past that certain point.
Okay.
But we started at 10 o'clock in the morning. I go in there, and now mind you, I'm not on the session as an engineer or a mixer yet, right? So we brought a song up called Jam because Teddy had to do some touch-ups on it, right? Mm. And at that time, the procedure was, you know, we had a system going in New York that Teddy particularly liked. Now, mind you, I'm only about a month working in with Teddy. So what Teddy loved about me when I used to do my slave reels, which is a safety reel, was we put the kicks on one track, the snare on another track, stereo percussions, bass, stereo keys, right? Stereo background vocals and a lead vocal, right? So I would mix that down, then bounce it down to eight, I think was that 12 tracks, maybe 10 tracks. Mm-hmm. And I did that preparing it. A guy named Renee Moore came into that morning session. Okay. I don't know who Renee Moore is. I didn't put two and two together. That's Renee and Angela, one, and that Renee wrote on Jam. Okay. So I'm doing this. He goes, who are you? I said, I'm Jean-Marie. I said, he goes, no, I'm Renee. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm making a slave reel. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm making it sound right so Teddy can go and get with it. Because do you mind if I hear what you're doing? I said, well, yeah, sure. It's just a quick, just a quick mix down. And he heard it and he ran out the room. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucking fired. The next thing I see was Renee, Bruce, Michael, and Teddy. He goes, play that joint. And they said, oh my God. And Michael turned around to me and goes, are you Italian? I said, no, I'm Croatian. Because you look Italian, right? And he's listening to it and he goes, Bruce goes, this is wonderful. Give him all the tapes. Wow. I said, come again? He goes, give him all the tapes. Get him to start mixing. And that was it. Wow. That's how I got on the Michael project. Because I was thinking differently. Wow. So you did the 7, did you do the 7 tracks? Or did you have to? Yes. Yep. And at that time, Bruce pulled me off on the side. He said, look, we're not going to be able to give you mixed credit because of certain things. I said, Bruce, I'm just happy to be here. He said, but I am going to give you there's so much to this record I thought I was going to get fired 3 times on this record. And Bruce pulled me off his side. He goes, but we're going to give you some engineering credit. I said, fine, no problem. But Teddy always knew that me and Dave and Bruce and Teddy mixed those records of Teddy's. Okay. Okay. But it's just the politics of how things are in those days. And it was like, you know, you're thinking the pictures. But I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it because I know what I did, you know, and I speak my truth, and people know the sound because people always take us. I see where Teddy got his sound from. The only difference was that my 808s were a little bit louder than Bruce's, but Bruce, I understood why Bruce did that. He goes, so his philosophy is we save it for the remix because remixes were a lot of money back then.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why if you hear our Keep It in the Closet remix, that thing is phenomenal. And and here's the other thing. Teddy gave me Teddy was the first person to give me my remix credit as a remixer.
Oh, so you did. Okay. Oh.
And I didn't know what the hell I was doing on the MP. I said, he goes, do you know what you're doing? I said, no.
So you're just learning as you're good. Now, we knew there were 7 tracks that came out on the album, but were there more that you did that didn't make the album that you guys still worked on?
Yes. Someone Lay Your Hands Out.
Okay.
Was an amazing song. And Joy.
Did he actually record that? Because we tend to just hear the Blackstreet version. He actually made a version of that.
Incredible.
Wow.
Absolutely incredible. Michael was a perfection. And ain't nobody touching him. I don't care. And I've worked with so many great singers in my last 30 years or 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
No one's touching Mike. Nobody.
Was he
nobody?
When was he very hard working in the studios? I mean, was he considered? Was he? You know,
he was on point. He was on point. He was a consummate professional. But to get him in the studio to do vocals, especially when I was working with him on with Rodney on the Invincible record, he had to feel the right moment. Okay. And then when he felt it, he was on it. But this guy would turn around and leave the studio, and he'll be in Germany 6 hours later. You know what I'm saying? That's how it was. We thought he's going to come back. He didn't come back at all.
Yes, it did. Teddy mentioned that. But it took, after a while, you forget that he is Moonwalker Michael Jackson and just see him as a singer and just focus on the work.
He can do anything he wants.
Okay. So, okay, you finished it. Did you guys get nominated for a Grammy on the Dangerous album for engineering?
We did.
Okay. How did that feel?
Well, they did. What they did, I didn't.
Oh, they didn't.
Mind you, the politics.
Yeah. Okay.
That changed. If that was today, we would all got a little bit.
Okay. So you finished the Michael stuff. What are your folks thinking about the family that you? One minute you're learning in the studio, and
you don't want to. My mother said to go get a real job.
Oh, even when you're telling her that you're mixing for Michael Jackson, she didn't think it was anything?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
So you finished the Michael stuff. How long did that take you guys when you're out in LA?
We were actually finishing up some of the mixes out in Virginia Beach, and then we were sending everything out to Bruce. And then Bruce finished it up, I think it was September.
Okay.
September, October.
So after you'd finished that back in Virginia, what did you start working on next?
The Barbie record. And also, that was another thing. That summer of '91 was ridiculous. We were doing Rump Shaker at that time.
Oh yes.
And doing we were doing Rump Shaker. We were doing Rump Shaker, and we were doing the Bobby Brown album at the same time.
Now you moved from Larrabee to Teddy set up his Future Studios in Virginia Beach.
Yep.
What was the studio? It wasn't like Larrabee. I mean, what was it? Was there a difference? Did it have?
It was amazing. I miss that studio so much. It was probably the most perfect studio I've ever been in.
Wow.
I miss the studio, especially the original way that. Oh my God, the desk doctor. What is his name? Oh my God. He was the tech at Larrabee, and he made the rooms. Him and John Carter made those rooms. And Teddy's room was freaking perfect. Perfect. We had Prince's old E-Series board. Oh my God, that thing was singing. That's where you hear all the Dog Me Out. That's where you heard Well, at that time, before we started on the Wreckx-N-Effect stuff, we did Is It Good to You, Tammy,
Yeah. Is it the
Tammy
one with
Lucas's
Heavy?
version. That was my mix because Teddy had to run back to LA. I did that mix on my own. I was scared shitless. I thought Teddy was going to kill me. I was scared. And he goes, "This, John, you killed it." So this, now mind you, we're only working together 4 months, for like less than a month, like 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow.
And he loved, that's why me and Teddy are still, you know, he's my brother to this day. We still talk to this day.
Wow.
We talk about things all the time.
Wow.
You know, different scenarios, different things. And that room was such a great room. When I went back, after I left, mind you, I was only there from 91 to about 94, 95. When I left, Teddy redesigned the room, and he hated it, and I hated it. Oh my God, I couldn't stand the room. Okay. It was they put a fucking J board in there. I couldn't stand that J board.
Okay.
Oh, I couldn't.
But before we go forward, let's just go back. So you're doing, because that was a very powerful year for Teddy. I mean, he's just got Michael. He's got Rum Shaker, which is #1, and then he's doing the Barbie album, which is probably one of my top 3 sort of Teddy productions. The Barbie album, the Keith Sweat album, and the first Blackstreet album. But going back in, what was happening? Did he have so much work coming in because he's done Michael? So he was just, what was it like for you guys in those early days? And
if you ever talk to Teddy, he'll tell you, this is how much we worked. I had an apartment in Virginia Beach, and he'll tell you where I used to sleep. I used to sleep underneath the console, literally, because that was the warmest place in the studio, and that was the last place that Teddy would find me.
What was that?
I would sleep underneath the console, underneath the SSL board.
To escape, or to hide, or what? To
get some rest. We would be up literally 4 days in a row.
Wow.
No drugs. If Teddy saw that you were doing some, the only vice I had back then, I was smoking cigarettes back then. If Teddy found out that you were doing drugs, you're fired. Wow. No questions asked. You're leaving right there that day. That's why he loved about me, because he knew I didn't drink. He knew I didn't smoke. He knew I smoked cigarettes, which he hated, which he was so happy when I stopped. Now, mind you, I had a wine upon occasion, but never on the job.
Wow.
Never on the job.
So what were you guys working on? Because that you're saying, because I know that you had the Wreckx-N-Effect, the Barbie. What was else? What was?
Well, the Wreckx-N-Effect thing was more family. We were locked in. That whole summer, we were all locked in. We were thinking about 15, 16 songs deep. We were locked in. It took about 2.5 weeks just to print out the Rum Shaker mix. Oh my God. Because you know, when Teddy goes in on a remix, it's not just one version. It's 5.
Yeah, I've seen some of the first Blackstreet album. Yeah, the fun.
He was not playing, man. Teddy's a genius, man. People don't understand his genius now. He's so far ahead of everybody. He's about 10 years ahead of everybody.
Yeah. So you're doing the Wreckx-N-Effect. What was it like when you met, Kill and the rest of the guys? Did they embrace you? They said, Teddy, who's this guy you just brought in? What was that like?
When I first met Markel and Akil, I met them right when Teddy hired me that day, and we were brothers. It's I get emotional about it. Like, they took me in like I was their own.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very special, and I still talk to Akil and Markel today.
Okay.
They're very close to me. That whole family is very close to me. My nieces, Deja, Taja, and Bobby. I was there when Tasia was born.
Wow. Wow.
Oh yeah, that we're more family than anything else. He was never my boss. He was my brother. He still is my brother.
Yeah. So you did the Wreckx-N-Effect. You do that as soon as were you guys doing album after album? So you finished Wreckx-N-Effect, they finished. Yeah. You do the Bob. So you don't just do 3-4 different albums and artists all at the same time. Or what was happening in that 91, 92?
Oh God, there was so much stuff going on. We were doing Michael Jackson mixes. We were doing Michael Jackson remixes. We would get, prepping up for Michael's tour. which we were supposed to go on, and I told Teddy we can't do it because we got too much stuff. I got yelled at by Harvey Alston, God rest his soul. Harvey was so mad because Teddy was going to make about $150,000 a week. And I said, Teddy, we owe a lot of records, and we need to get this shit done. That's why me and Teddy was still to this day close, because we had a lot of shit to do. And plus, he didn't want to go on the road. He just got off of a hellacious tour with Guy.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. And that's when Guy broke up.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to go back on the road again. He wanted to stay in the studio and make records.
Yeah. He did say that Michael wanted him to be his music director, but
yes.
Okay. But then Michael was disappointed when he couldn't go on it. But yeah, it would have been a waste if you're going away and just focusing on a massive 1.5-year tour and not putting out any stuff. But then, so he was considering it, but you were the sort of the same voice saying no.
We got a lot of shit to do. I told him we got a lot of shit to do, man.
What did you have in the pipeline that she was going to leave?
Bobby.
Okay.
Then he was doing some other remixes for a lot of people. He was doing some stuff. Oh God, there was so much stuff back then. The couple of soundtrack stuff we were doing. Also the new Soul Train theme for Don Cornelius.
Wow.
Teddy was working with a lot of people back then. My memory's good, but not that good.
So let's talk about the Barbie album, because it's, as I said, if I had three Teddy albums, I would have said Barbie album, the Keith Sweat album, then the first Blackstreet, because
that took a lot of our time.
The sounds on the 6, 7 songs that you guys worked on. My favorite of all them is One More Night. I mean,
I was just listening to that the other day.
It is my favorite. I mean, it's been 6 minutes long because it can't 6.5 minutes, so you can't make it on the radio. But it's yeah. Can you talk about that?
That song, when Teddy wrote that, I still remember it. We started it late that night, and he didn't get done till about 2 or 3 days later because he was fine tuning it. Then Bernard Bell came in and wrote the song with Mary Brown came down, Mary and Marsha came down. Everybody was down there. Big Bub was down there.
Wow.
Everybody was down there for that. Everybody was down there for that.
For the album.
For all the writers. I mean, Teddy 1991 to 1994, that Virginia Beach was a music factory.
Yeah.
And we had so many people down there working with us. Teddy would rent out these places, these apartments, so everybody could be working at the same time. And they would come in and drop some stuff, and that's it. There was so many people. There was a lot of influences down there. A lot of influences.
Yeah, the one thing that we noticed is that he had a consistent team with Tammy Lucas, Mary Brown, Marco McCulloch, and who would sing background, who would co-write Bernard Bell. You mentioned it. It seemed as if he had a crew that he kind of worked with.
Bernard was always there.
Okay.
Bernard was always there. At that time, Bernard was always there, and then Bernard went to do some other stuff later down that road.
Yeah. So with yourself, so especially the Barbie album, what was that like then? Because as I said, the sound of that album it almost sounded like the instruments it was recorded like live instruments compared to didn't seem as manufactured. So there's something about that album that was really, and he actually got nominated for Producer of the Year for that album for his tracks on those albums. So that's how highly they was.
I think at that point in time, Teddy was enlightened because we just came off the Michael record, and he was up there. He was up there. He was so focused, you couldn't talk shit to him. When Teddy goes like this, when I call it the blinders, it was just me and him, eye to eye. That was it. Nobody else could talk to him. Nobody. He was so focused. It was ridiculous. The sounds that we used to get, and mind you, a lot of the Michael sounds we both made, like we made sounds. And at that point in time, Teddy found this thing called the Vocalist. I said, Teddy, what happens if we put it like stereo, right? And then Teddy would say, well, what happens if we get 3 of them? Left, right, and center. And that's what you hear on Bobby's record. We were the first people to start using the vocalist.
Wow. It sounded, as I said, that's why it sounds, I mean, it's still my favorite album, and I actually only listened to the 7 tracks because it sounds really, it has a very distinct sound on that. One My Night as a Apprentice is my favorite track on that. So were you there when they were doing the recording as well as? So
I was recording it.
Okay.
I was recording and mixing. I was everything down there. I was my own assistant. I was the engineer. I was the project coordinator for the thing. We were working. There was nobody's like titles. We just got the job done.
Wow.
That's how I was working 24/7. I'll be in there recording. My eyes would be closed, and I'll be cutting, dropping stuff in and out. Teddy would be always in there recording with me.
So then, because Rum Shaker's biggest song in the country that year, then he's out promoting it. Then you're on your own. You had other people joining in.
I would be down there. He would tell me what to fix. Jean, I need you to bring this up. Fix this. Jean, I need you to do this. Jean, I need you to do that. No problem. My pager was always, at that time, everybody had pages. My pager was always going. Always going. Never a dull moment. And Teddy would be in, and Teddy would be out. Now, mind you, at that time, Blackstreet was starting to come together.
Okay. So
there was a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, when you think about the albums, I mean, you did the Bobby stuff. Then you move on to was it Blackstreet? Was that the next thing that came out after Bobby, or?
Well, pretty much.
Yeah. So I mean, the remix for the SWV, "So Into You,"
right?
That was a big one for them, and I think there was a remix for Mary J's stuff from her album and stuff. But
I was gone by then.
Oh, you were gone by then.
Okay. I was gone by then.
Okay, but you did the Blackstreet album. You did the first Blackstreet album?
No, I did, but I never got credited for it.
Oh. Okay. So what was it? So after the Bobby, what was the next thing that you worked on with
Teddy?
Yeah.
I was pretty much doing all the Blackstreet stuff, but we had it was time for me to go. There was a lot of politics down in Virginia Beach that I wasn't really part of because he knew I was always crazy. Teddy would tell you that I was a little bit off.
Okay.
Because I didn't take no bullshit. And I just said, Ted, this ain't for me. So I did what Dave Wade did. Either I was going to go to New York or I was going to go to California. I chose California. Okay. It was easy for me to go to New York. It was harder for me to stay in California. So I up and left, and the next thing I did was I did the Belle Biv DeVoe Hoodie Mac record. And then after that, I started working on Aaron Hall's new album, and I started coming up with my own name. People started hearing the difference in my sound. People started liking what I did, and that's because of Teddy Riley. So then what was it that you, so when you moved to LA, I mean, did you just then go to a studio and say, can I get a job? Or what? I mean, I don't know how it is for you guys. It's not. No. So how did you guys? Basically, people heard that I was available. Oh, okay. And Teddy did not want me to leave, by the way. Okay. Teddy didn't want to happen what happened with Dave Way. He kept me really close. He kept it really close with me. He did not want me to go. I mean, we had a system. We were killing it. Yeah. It's just that certain people that were down in Virginia Beach were, how would I say, I couldn't get along with them. And I get along with everybody. Yeah. Because I think, as I said, for a lot of us who follow the music, we could tell the difference when he had Dave Way. We could tell the difference with the sound. Then when you came on board, we could tell the difference with the sound up to the first Blackstreet album. And I think subsequently, the sound somewhat changed. And so you could just tell sort of a shift. But you unless you're in there, you don't really know why there's a change and stuff. So you go to, yeah. So you go to, go ahead. One of the best Blackstreet records that I heard that Teddy did, it wasn't even a Blackstreet record. It was actually a Guy record they came out with, Guy 3. That was probably one of my favorite mixes that Teddy did. When I left, there was a bunch of people going in there trying to mix for Teddy. And Teddy feeds off of energy. And I think the energy was just a little bit off. The one person that I really loved after I left, and because I came back, actually 3 years later, we did the I Get So Lonely remix together. We did the Queen Pin remix together. I never got credited for it, but I was down there for that because Teddy wanted me to come back home. And I was making a pretty decent name for myself and had a little chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to keep doing it. I didn't want to work for one person. I figured that I can send my talents and enhance different producers' abilities so we can rebuild our community.
Mm. So you did the I Get So Lonely remix. Okay, and but so you came back, worked a little bit, but then you started to. So where did you go? You're back in LA, starting to make a name for yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed you did some stuff with Rodney.
Oh yeah.
How did that connection?
I bumped into him in at Enterprise Studios. I said, "You Rodney Jerkins, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm Jean-Marie Horvat." He said, "What?" And he knew who I was. That was it. He was amazing. Rodney's amazing.
So did you do Invincible with him?
I did. Okay. We were part of the whole writing camp for Invincible, where me, Harvey Mason Jr. went to the junkyards to make new drum sounds because he knew I made drum sounds on the Michael record.
Hmm. Yeah, so it had that sort of kick and stuff. Did Michael recognize you when he saw you again?
He did, but he didn't. You know what I'm saying? He did, he didn't. At that time, I cut my hair really, really short.
Okay.
I was more, I was more cut up. I was actually into more physical fitness and shit like that. So I wasn't as skinny as I was when he first met me. I was more built. That was many moons ago.
Yeah. So what was the difference? Because now you're doing the Invincible album and you're working with Rodney on his tracks, but then Teddy's doing about 3, 4, 5, or 6 tracks as well. Okay.
He didn't come in till afterwards.
Oh.
That was Rodney's record.
So he was supposed to do everything.
And then Michael brought Teddy in to finish up the album.
Oh, was there a reason why?
I'm not too sure, because I left because when you in our field, if you get caught up doing one album, you lose out on a lot of stuff. So with Rodney, when we were doing the Invincible record, he asked me to be a part of it. Literally, I was out of pocket for 2.5 months doing that Michael record in the writing stages in Studio One, Record One in LA. And I didn't see my apartment, and I lived in LA. We all slept at the studio to get it done. And I felt that I had to get away from it because I was missing out on work. And there was a lot of things going on, budgets and this and that, and a lot of label stuff was really happening. And I told Rodney, I said, Rodney, look, I gotta go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've spoken to other people about the Invincible album and how Michael saw the politics change for him, but so he didn't get the backing and stuff. So I can imagine. But you said so Rodney was supposed to have done the whole album, but then he probably didn't. He just decided, let me get Teddy back in to do some of the.
Yeah.
Okay. So so that your journey then. I mean, you've honed your crafts, working with Teddy, you're moving around and stuff. When you look back at all the tracks that you've worked on, would you have an album or that you'd say, this was my favorite album that this is me?
In the New Jack era or my era?
Well, okay, we can start off with the sort of the New Jack and now just overall, but just if you think about those back then.
Probably the one thing that stood out to me that I finally got it in such a small amount of time was the Remember the Time remix that we did, because I was brought in also as a remixer.
Okay.
And Teddy really taught me a lot. In such a, I don't realize how much how much I learned in such a small amount of time, and how much trust that he had in me as his mixer, as his engineer, as his right-hand ace. You don't realize it until years later. And I kind of noticed it because the mixes that we gave to Michael were not the mixes that made the record. And I didn't quite understand why, because it was kind of dumbed down a little bit. The mixes that me and Teddy did were like so much more stronger. But then as politics reigns, I figured out why. It's because it was a succession. You get the remixes to build it up. So it's more of a financial thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But where the real true Teddy-isms came out was when I mixed Say My Name. And that's when me and Teddy were really working hand in hand. And I kind of surpassed everybody's vision on that song. But the true record that really stood out for me, and it's still, I use the same philosophy as to use to this day, excuse me, is the first Robin Thicke record.
Okay.
That to me is probably, in a nutshell, what I learned from Teddy, what I brought to the Robin Thicke table. We did so much stuff. There's so much, I don't even remember how much stuff I did in the 90s until really talking to you right now. It's like, wow, I did a lot of stuff, and I can't remember half the stuff I did. And I try not to work a lot either. I was not trying to work all the time. I tried to give myself, because I'm more like a hippie back then. You know, I call myself a bougie hippie, because I wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
And I studied more records. I like literally studied records, and not one genre, just different genres, to get to where I'm at to this day.
Yeah. So it's the Robin Thicke. Okay. So, I mean, I guess what is fascinating is the
Teddy actually commented on that too.
Oh, did he?
he loved that record. He couldn't believe I did it.
No, I guess because I heard Terry Lewis talk about, you know, he was naming producers, and what he mentioned about Teddy was about Teddy not only as a musician but the technical side of his stuff. And I think people like us who aren't really, you know, we think of a producer who, okay, you're playing the drums and stuff, but we don't understand the engineering and the mixing side of it, which most producers like weren't doing, but he seemed to be doing.
He's unbelievable. He's the guy. I still, you know what? I brought something out. This is what Teddy gave me.
Oh my goodness.
I brought it out just for you guys. That's why I started the drummers on the Remember the Time drums.
Wow.
He gave me the PC. I still have it.
He did say that he loved building computers and taking it apart and creating.
He's a genius. He is a genius. I'm trying to tell you, it's like, I don't think people realize how his brain works. He figured out the SSL before anybody else could have ever explained to him. He did better than some of the engineers that tried to, quote unquote, try to teach him. And I think that's why he liked about me, because I didn't know too much about it. I just went and started messing around with stuff that sounded good. Yeah,
I was talking to Timmy Gatlin, who formed guy who knew Teddy since they were kids, and they formed guy, and yeah, and he was talking about how Teddy called him and says, "Come over to the house," and he had created Groove Me, the whole mix and the whole song, and he's just like, wow. And he said, Teddy said, write the lyrics to it, and you know, he wrote it, but he commented about the musicianship. You know, he said he saw Teddy playing as like maybe a 12-year-old with grown men, and he was outplaying them. So it is amazing that you have people with that type of skills and stuff.
A lot of people don't realize that Teddy was producing when he was 11 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't know. A lot of people did not know that. Rumors had it, and I heard from a lot of people. Teddy was actually in Jersey City, where Kool and the Gang was from, and Teddy was actually playing with Kool and the Gang and writing back then. And he's crazy. Teddy was nuts at 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Kids at Work was when he was 13.
Yeah.
When he did that the show, I think Teddy was about 15 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, it's funny. It's funny how people didn't know his hidden genius.
Yeah. But what is interesting now? So what about yourself now? Are you moving away from engineering and mixing into the production side, or what are you doing now?
I still, my bread and butter is always mixing, but I do a lot of production. I do a lot of ghost producing back maybe about 10 years ago. A lot of people didn't know, and pretty much anything I did back then had a little taste of what I normally do, like just enhancing. I wouldn't say production, enhancing, but I did a lot of ghosting. When I left Teddy, I produced a rock record for Gary Hoey. I started doing more production. When I left Virginia Beach, I tried to become a producer with my lovely MP, and at that time was a JV-80. And people said that I sound too much like Teddy. And I said, well, shit, damn, man, I did work with one of the greatest guys in the world. So they just wanted to keep me down a little bit and frustrate me. And then years later, about 2 or 3 years ago, about 2 years ago, sorry, 2 years ago, I was working with Molly Mall, not Molly Mall.
Okay.
The other guy, the other Molly Mall. Not the vintage one, the new guy.
Okay.
And he heard from somebody say, yo, I heard that you do tracks, because I just did a mix for him. He didn't know who I was until Claudio Quinas goes like this, goes, dude, this guy did Michael Jackson, did all the stuff. So he goes, but you should really listen to his production. And Molly Mall said to me, he said, I heard that you got tracks. I said, yeah. So I sent him the tracks. He said, dude, these are a little different, because when I produce very differently. I have a different mindset, obviously, after having our conversation. So he said, hey, can you do something for me? I said, yeah. He goes, can you flip this one track for me? It's called Side to Side. And it was from 3 6 Mafia. I said, yeah. I said, but I have to do it my way. I'm not trying to, sample this or anything. He goes, no, I don't want you to. I want you to do it your way. He gave it to Sway Lee. It turned out to be Powerglide. And I thought I was going to get Ghost production on it. He said, nah, you're not doing Ghost productions no more, brother. You're getting full production.
Wow.
And that's how it happened. So really, that track was produced by me and Molly Mall, written by me, Molly Mall, and Sway Lee. Wow. And then the other cast of writers that were on there, which is basically Jessie J and his brother, Slim.
Okay. So is that now what you? Because I saw did you do the country stuff?
Yeah, the country trap stuff. Yeah. And please, guys, I don't know when this is going to air, but one of my friends, really close friends, Uncle Brown, got into a major accident, and we just need to pray for him. He's a very special person. I met him about almost 2 months before before the Get Up came out. Wow. And an amazing songwriter, not country, just in general. Yeah. And I started doing these tracks. I said, let me try to do a joke, and the joke was on me. So it's like that we came out with a song for this girl named Caitlin Page, KP, and it's a song called Daisy Dukes. I did 5 of them, 5 country trap tracks. Yeah. My trap version of it. Yeah. And then we also did a trap metal record.
Okay.
With this girl named Babe Animal that's hopefully going to come out relatively soon, called Riot.
Wow. My goodness, it's no, I did hear it, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize you can transition from engineering and mixing into sort of production and stuff.
Well, I think a lot of it is because I'm not your true engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not a true mixer. I'm a musician.
Yeah.
That happens to mix and engineer.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Okay.
I don't think conventionally. Everybody tries to think with numbers. That's like when people say, "Oh, that's a 2K, 4K."
Yeah.
It could be fucking special K. I don't give a shit.
That's okay.
There's high mids, low mids, and lows. You know, the high mids is kind of funny. If you could tell me what frequency that is, then you can hear gnats fucking.
Yeah.
All right, that's a bunch of, that's somebody trying to be smarter than the other person in the room to think that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't go for that. I'm not that type of dude.
Yeah.
That's the reason why Teddy loved me so much, because I didn't give a shit who was in the room. I didn't care. He knew I didn't care that Michael was in the room. He knew I didn't care. He knew I needed to get the job done, because when I first got into the industry, I got starstruck twice in the same day. Once I met Ziggy Marley, because I was running the desk at the time when I first started working at Sigma.
Yeah.
And the other one I met Raquel Welch.
Okay.
And then the guy goes like this to me, who was working there, he goes, "They're just people. Get over it." And I never forgot that. Mike Scalcione told me that. He said, "Get over the fact that these guys are stars." And from that point on, I never treated anybody like a star.
Yeah.
I treated them just like a normal human being. That's why me and Michael got along so well.
Mm.
That's why a lot of people that work with me so well. I don't give a shit what you know. Your job is to entertain.
Yeah.
I'm not here to pacify them. I'm here to try to make hit records. I don't give a crap.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned from Teddy. Teddy didn't take that shit. That's one thing that Teddy taught me. He goes, "Listen, John, they want a hit record by all means necessary." So when he asked me, this is what he told me. He goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, I want to be a producer." He goes, "I'll help you with that." And then months later, he goes, "Your production is going to be your mixes for now. That's how you're going to get paid right now." This is what Teddy told me in 1991.
Mm.
He goes, "You're going to get better." Because we were supposed to do the Metallica record. He didn't want to do it. He said no. Oh, Teddy, what? You didn't hear that?
No.
Teddy was supposed to do Metallica.
Wow.
In 1992. He turned it down.
He did Rolling Stones' Love Is Strong. Were you around with that?
No. I wish I was.
Okay.
I was gone by then.
Okay. Metallica, wow. That's well, he turned it down because he didn't want to venture off, or
he didn't know enough of it. He wasn't prepared for it.
Well, that's amazing, because most people would take the risk, maybe fail, and then that'll be it.
Oh, I'll tell you one thing. I was so mad that I wasn't a part of the fucking Tom Jones thing. Oh, I was so mad about it.
Swing the lead and yeah.
I wanted to do that because I'm a big Tom Jones fan.
Okay, he's from. I'm in England, so he's out in Wales.
Yeah, that was man. Growing up, that's my cousin Michael and my brother Walter, and they're the ones who turned me on to Tom Jones.
So I did left by the time he worked with Tom.
Yeah. I think he was supposed to do something for Barbra Streisand too.
Wow. My goodness. But I guess what's been fascinating, I think a lot of the Michael fans, you did Hollywood Tonight? So it's getting...
Yeah. Yep.
Was that... When was that done? Because the album came out after he died, but when was that done recorded? Was that part of the Dangerous, or...
Well, that's when Michael passed away, and we just got the reels. Those were done prior to Teddy even touching them.
Okay.
And Teddy was actually asked to make it and finish it.
Okay, so he called you back, or what did he do?
Yeah, he called me back on that.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I'm sure that we it's been almost an hour and a half, and we probably didn't even get into any of the stories about Whitney and Bobby, and
Not even close.
Yeah, because that's actually, as I said, that's probably the sound, the sounds on that album. It is one of my favorites. you know, after the sort of after the first, well, even the first guy, but that's that Barbie album and stuff, but I heard from Father MC when he came down to do 69. Were you there at that time?
No.
Okay, but I guess there was just this understanding. So by the time you left, were you still checking back in? Because I know Big Bob had his album. I know Men of Vision came down there, so it was almost like everyone was.
As a matter of fact, Teddy called me up to do the Men of Vision record.
Okay, the first one.
And I actually, I love Big Bub for this. I was about to leave the music industry.
What?
Oh yeah, and I think it was like, I think around 96, 97. And I was really, you know, LA makes you get healthy. And I was really into it. And I said, I hated the politics. I hated everything about the politics. I wanted to do more rock music. They said no hip hop guy can do rock music. And the whole idea that Teddy picked me up was that because I mixed a rock record like a hip hop record. I made it, make sure that the drums were hitting you right in the chest, smacking you in your face, because I didn't like all that reverb. That's why Teddy loved me so much.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go for what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
And I was just getting put down too much. And the fact is that I stole Teddy's sounds and like there was a lot of shit going on. A lot of bullshit because everybody's trying to make their way in the music industry. And I really didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So I started doing some stuff, and this guy named Tom Brown, who was the manager at Enterprise, he said, Jean, I got a session for you. Would you mind doing it? I said, yeah. He goes, it's called this guy named Tom Jefferson. I said, I know Tom Jefferson. God rest his soul. He said, go to McCall. I said, all right. He said, hey, Tom, this is Jean-Marie. He goes, it's Jean-Marie. Jean, it's Tom. I said, Tom Jefferson? Big Buck Tom Jefferson? He goes, yeah. He goes, Bub needs you. He goes, Bub wants you. He goes, I'm glad you can't call. He goes, I said, all right. He goes, Bub wants you to do a session with him. I said, no problem. And if it wasn't for Bub, I would have left the music industry.
Wow.
I love Big Bub. And Timeless, I was on that record.
You know, that's Settle Down. My Way is my favorite track on that. You know, even the Zoom, it was, you know, a lot of people, I didn't understand why it didn't get to go triple platinum. It was probably production-wise and the sound and the vocals.
Oh, Bub was amazing on that. Well, Bub was, look, if it wasn't for Bub, we would have had a really hard time in the beginning stages of my career over down there, because everybody tried to jockey in to get Teddy's ear, and Bub just shut everybody out. He goes, this the guy you need to talk to. Stay away from this dude.
Wow.
That's how Bub was. Bub did not care. Bub did not care. Bub's crazy. I love Bub. But see, that's the whole thing. It's like when you get a bunch of crazy people in the same room, you couldn't penetrate that. We had such an amazing time. You know, we just had an amazing time down at Virginia Beach.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess as you guys, because everyone's, you know, Pharrell talks about, and even Timbaland talks about, when Teddy comes and all the stars would come in, all of a sudden it gave everyone a sense of, wow, stuff could happen here. And people for leaving New York and stuff. And I guess when you're getting big and successful, it's quite easy for a lot of other things to come in, and the chemistry can start to break and stuff. But
I gotta tell you, it was, Teddy did something down at Virginia Beach. When we did the I Get So Lonely remix, that's why I met Timbaland. And
yeah, he did. He was credited for doing some
beatbox.
Okay.
He was amazing. And then years later, I started working with Tim because he found out I did the Omarion mixes for Entourage. I did the mix that mix Entourage, and I just fell in love with Tim. I really wish I worked with Tim a little bit more. I think Tim is, a lot of my production ideas is from Teddy. There's a lot of Teddyisms in there, but there's a lot of things that I learned from Tim. And Tim doesn't get really credited. I know we're talking about Teddy right now, but I have to say
no, this isn't about Teddy. This was about you. So, yeah.
Oh, Timbaland does not get credited enough as a phenomenal producer. He is absolutely freaking amazing. I don't care what people say. I worked with the man. We were doing something for Justin Timberlake. We were doing some stuff for Duran Duran, but we were doing something for Esme Denters that was signed to him, right? And King and Jerome was supposed to do the remix for Esme, right? And they couldn't get the drums right. Tim comes walking in out of nowhere. He goes, "What you guys doing?" He goes, "We're doing drums, right?" He goes, "Were you having a hard time?" He goes, "Yeah, well, why don't you do this?" 4 sounds. 4 sounds. Jean, line that up. You're done. And he walked out. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was the whole set. I looked at Ken Commissar, the president of Tin Man at that time. I said, "This is why Timbaland's a fucking beast." I don't give a shit what anybody says. Timbaland knows what he doesn't have to do everything. But he doesn't. He brings, do you know what Timbaland does? He brings people up. Mm. He knows talent when he sees it. He could do everything. He's amazing. He'll figure the shit out. He's that amazing. Everybody likes to downplay Tim or put Tim in a pedestal. And there's like haters or non-haters. Let me tell you something. Y'all need to put Tim up here. He's amazing. Him, Dre. I can't wait to meet Dre. Oh, I can't wait to meet Dre. Still to this day, I've never met Dre yet.
Wow.
Never met Dr. Dre.
You probably should have been on the No Diggity if you're still.
You know what? That Another Level record, by far, Teddy did the most amazing work on that. And I know those were Teddy's mixes with Junior, with this guy named George Maris. I love that kid. When I left, that if anybody wants to know who worked with Teddy and who did all those mixes for Teddy after I left, it was Junior. It was George Maris. And he did such an amazing job with Teddy on that.
Yeah. I mean, so for now, what's so going forward? I mean, just it was great to me hearing your story from the back stuff and those.
We need to have part 2 to this. You know that, right?
Yeah, definitely, because it'd be great just to hear, going forward. I mean, do you have stuff lined up producing wise, or are you still focusing on the mixing and then?
Actually, right now, I'm proud to say that I am mixing Trey Songz's new album. Oh. I think I got a lot of them. I don't know how much is going to be on the record, but I'm doing Robin Thicke's new album.
Wow.
Then I'm doing, I'm actually writing and producing for 3 artists right now. One of them is a kid named Princeton Perez, who's a kid from Mindless Behavior. And I'm still doing stuff with Babe Animal, and my artist that I'm working with, her name is Alexa Ilsiwi. She is part Peruvian and part Egyptian. Wow. And she is gorgeous. Here's the other thing. She's an ex-pro surfer.
Okay.
And she's phenomenal. And it's more like neoclassic soul with a little trap element into it.
Wow. I think the final question I had is because the technology has changed things so much that everyone has a studio in their bedroom compared to like going to Hits Factory in Louderbury and all those places. Are you still working at the big studios, or are you able to condense everything as well? Like, Timbaland has a little beatbox and stuff. What are you doing?
Okay, so prior to the COVID thing, it's so funny. That's a great question to ask. Through my years of working at Larrabee and all that, I had the opportunity to work at Babyface's studio for like 6 years. That was my spot.
Was that Brandon Way out in Edmund
Yes.
Towers? I worked at Edmund.
Brandon Way, not Edmund Towers, Brandon Way.
Okay, well, okay.
That was my home for 5 years.
Wow.
5-6 years. And there is where I came up with this concept. That and also Ann Maselli's studio called Jungle City. If it wasn't for the and to put this on top of there, Robin Thicke. When we did Robin Thicke's record, we did that at his house in a
Wow.
converted bedroom that they made as a studio. And that's where my ears started coming. So I have a studio in North Hollywood that I made with Paul Foley, who's the owner of Muse Studios. And it was not supposed to be, it was supposed to be like a home atmosphere. It's not technically inclined that way, but it feels and it sounds great. If you talk to my mastering guys, they'll tell you it's probably one of the best sounding rooms that they heard. And I did the same thing in my bedroom right here. I converted, I had to redo as you can tell, I'm still doing construction. I had to do a quick construction when the COVID thing happened. And majority of mixes of Justine Skye, PJ stuff, Robin stuff, and Trey Songz stuff was done in this room. All the production stuff that I've been doing most recently were done in this room. And people are bugging the hell out.
Wow.
So a lot of the stuff in my travels, working through Larrabee, the things that I loved about each room, and I try to convert in the room. But the one thing as I remembered is, like I said, my brain works a little differently.
Yeah.
When we write and produce, we don't write and produce normally in a major studio until you get the budget, right?
Yeah.
And those are the most unique sounds. Why? Because it was done in an uninhabited atmosphere. It was not, the imperfections make it perfect. And that's what I've been doing, trying to make an imperfect room perfect.
Okay. So do you think you'd prefer smaller, contained places?
Yes.
The sound as opposed to going back to Larrabee or Hits Factory?
Well, there's a room in Larrabee that Manny Marroquin's a really close friend of mine. And Manny and I were talking, he wants me to come back to Larrabee. There is one room that I want to test out. It's one of the new rooms. I think it's the Aqua Blue room. Okay. I'm trying to test that out. But to me, it's like, I don't need a lot of influences because to me, it's like I can mix out of a tin can if I had to. Yeah. And my room is kind of tight. I think a lot of it is the foot traffic, but no one's really coming to the mixes. And the only time I really miss a big studio is when I cut vocals. Okay. Because I need that containment. Because my room, the way I have my room, it's a little off, but that's what makes it so perfect. And a lot of people love being in my room because it's so tight. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's so tight.
Yeah. I mean, Timmy Gatlin was saying that when they recorded Piece of My Love, that Aaron, in those early days, you sang in the bathroom. Yeah. In the bathroom, yeah. And I said, because if you listen to the original track, it sounds very muffled. He says because Aaron was more comfortable singing in the bathroom than going to the studio, so they kept that version and just sort of, he says something about transporting it into the big studio, but the vocals there, and then how Teddy said he used to record Keith Sweat stuff in the mom's bathroom and stuff. But I guess it's just amazing how, and you know, a lot of young beat makers, you know, they work on their laptops and stuff, and they just use a room, and I think there's loads of all the stuff to try and filter out the background noise. And I wonder, does it mean that the bigger studios might lose the footfall going forward as technology keeps improving, or do you think there will always be a need for Larrabee's and a Hits Factory and all these places?
There's always going to be honestly, the only thing I really wish that these laptop producers would have more so is the ability to spread their stuff out on a console so they can expand their mind. But I try to explain to them, you can do that in every DAW. Most of the Fruity Loop guys have been really expanding their minds, and mostly also the Ableton guys. But they're more into reconstruction of stuff. But if they had like someone like a Dave Way, myself, or somebody like that, spreading their stuff or spreading it inside their DAW, if they had a mirror image, and we're curating those sounds, it would be so much different. Wow. Whether it be better or not, it will be different. Yeah. Wow. But to me, it's like when people hear, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm very proud of the sounds that I made around the Molly Mall time, which I call it, these drum sounds that I made, that people, like I had a meeting last week with Keisha, which is Princeton Perez's manager. She goes, yo, your drums are sick. I said, they're not even mixed yet. And they said, well, how is that possible? See, this is where part 2 comes in. What I learned from Teddy and how I expanded that production from Virginia Beach. And it all really stems on the fact is my son, Gianni, came up to me. I said, John, do you like this? And he goes, no, Dad. I said, wow. And then my wife comes up to me and she said, you should really ask him what he likes. And I was like, I was really such a get off my lawn type guy. I said, get off my lawn. You know, all these young kids, that what the hell do they know? And all this is because I became a musical snob. And everybody becomes a musical snob one way or another. And it was my son who turns around and goes, Dad, I love this stuff. And this is the shit that I did before he was born. So I had to go back and not be a musical snob to get my production sound. So my production sound comes from Machina, and then I transferred over to Logic. And that's a whole different sound.
Wow.
And that is something that I learned from Teddy, because Teddy is the one who turned me on to Logic. He said, get off the MPC. And I just couldn't get off the MPC right away because there was a certain feel. Now with Machina coming to my life, I have the MPC, and then I go into Logic, and it gives it a certain sound that I personally love.
Yeah.
And there it is. So
Wow.
all my production really comes out of Logic, and all my mixes that I do of my production comes out of Logic because there's a certain sound that I like. Now, it doesn't make that Pro Tools is bad.
Yeah.
I just think there's a different sound to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, there's always a difference with you know, I think when technology gets smaller and more accessible, it has to make it accessible for many. It loses certain things in order to, you know, cost and everything. Hence, they could go to the moon in the 60s, but they can't go now because even though the technology is better, but it's like, well, it's going to cost so much more. You know, it's a very strange concept. Our final question is, if you were stuck in an elevator for about 2 or 3 hours and they said, look, we can give you, you can watch a movie, what would you want to watch while we get you out?
Oh, God. Escape from Alcatraz. No, a movie. Probably something comical, you know, like one of my favorite funny movies is either the Dirty Dozens or Kelly's Heroes was one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
There's a lot of great actors in there, and it's a really good movie. Yeah,
I mean that's what the whole gist was, to see what your favorite movie was. But if you had a chance, you tend to then think of your favorite movie, like, you know, I could just watch this without thinking of beats and stuff. Song-wise, though, they say, look, we're going to put the movie in, but, you know, we'll play a track before we can get the tape in. What would you want to listen to?
Dark Side of the Moon.
No, not the whole album, just the sing. I'm just thinking about this, the track.
That's 3 hours. Dark Side of the Moon, the whole album. One song in particular. It would have to be something from Stevie Wonder. It would have to be, because even a sad song from Stevie, there's some joy to it.
Yeah.
You know, it could be Always. Golden Lady is one of my all-time favorite songs. I do a lot of production listening to with that. There's a lot of people who always ask where you come. See, you always, as a mixer and also as a producer, you always have to reinvent yourself. And I go back to get forward.
Wow.
So anything, like, if we had to really think about a song, one song, anything from Stevie Wonder.
Anything from, okay.
Anything from Stevie Wonder. As for movies, I mean, just the fun of it, because I like a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
Probably has to be Kelly's Heroes. I like that movie a lot.
Okay.
But if there was something that's going to be playing over the intercom system, it would have to be Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay. Yeah, that's legendary album and stuff. Yeah. You know what? We have to. I really appreciate the walk through history and stuff. You know, it's one of the things where, as I said, they don't do it anymore now because, you know, you hear a lot of stuff, Spotify and digital, so you don't buy the CD, you don't look at the credits. But back in the day, when you get a record, especially when the CDs came out, not the tapes as much, the CDs, you know, we'd all go through it and see, okay, who did this and who did this, and so
Yeah.
so, but we don't get that anymore. So you might be doing a lot of things, but it's quite hard for us to see your credits. Now the industry will see where it is, and you know, for your royalties, but it's harder for the fans to get a picture as to who's doing what and the consistency, and saying, yeah, now I can hear John Silent's song, and I can hear his touch in this remix and all this mix or this production stuff, and I think that's the sad thing we've lost with the way the technology is going to and stuff. But it was a pleasure and an honor, definitely, to hear your memories and stuff. I'm sure that we could have gone on for hours just listening to some of the stuff, but
oh God, I there's so many stories behind this. It's like there's so many great stories that you know. Hopefully, we can get a part 2 out of the deal. Maybe
no, definitely.
Talk about productions and engineering productions, like what I took from Teddy and what I took from Teddy in the mixing world to the production world, and what his ear was. What I can honestly say as we close this is, if it wasn't for Teddy Riley, I would never have a career, and that's God's honest truth.
You know, I think a lot of people would be surprised the fact that he just picked you with very little experience to work on some of the most high-profile thing of his. We could have made or break him. Then Michael stuff, you know, he's told everyone about how his old manager left him for broke, and then he was almost
Three times almost got fired off the Michael record. He'll tell you that. If you ever talked to him, he goes, John Marie said he almost got fired 3 times. But there were life-changing sounds on Michael records that people use to this day.
Which particular tracks was it?
Dangerous. Dangerous. I almost got, oh my God, I almost got fired. Oh my God. And it turned out to be the Dolby. It was, all right, so real quick. I missed a step, encoding or decoding. I forgot which one to do because we had the Dolby SRs and I messed up somewhere. But it gave this sound. And I said, fuck it. When Teddy wakes up, I'll explain to him. I really thought I was going to get fired. I said, Teddy, I think I fucked up, but I think it sounds good. You should come listen to this. He goes, all right, man. And he listened and goes, yo, John, this sounds really, really good. So Teddy had to break the bad news to Bruce Swedien. It became the Dolby SR effect. My mistake was probably one of my blessings.
My goodness. Did Michael hear it? What did he think when he heard it?
I love it. Michael was into sounds. He loved it. We made it. We made it sound great. Bruce finished it up. I thought Bruce was gonna hate me. He goes, "Well, those are great mistakes. Never mistakes. Just new innovation." That was Bruce.
How was Bruce? Because he was used to, both he and Quincy old school sort of thing, and a sort of a structure. And you've got just young Teddy Riley coming in, and you've got his maverick engineer.
He was more forward way thinking than Teddy.
Are you kidding me? Wow.
Come on, Teddy. We need to get those kick drums punchier.
Wow.
All right, put it this way. He was the first one that was making the sounds. He would take a water bottle, like a 5-gallon water bottle, and he made an 808 with it. He's the one who told us about the MPC, at the MPC 60s, that they were -10 on the individual outputs, and his was modified by Bruce Forat that was +4 on all the outputs. Bruce was ahead of its time. Bruce is bad, man. That's all I got to say. Bruce is bad, man.
Wow. I guess you're the envy when you talk to your engineers, like, look, my first gig was going on Toad Guy, working on the Michael stuff, and then all of a sudden doing the Bobby and Whitney and just countless stuff. And it's been an amazing ride, and I'm sure your family would be like, maybe you shouldn't have gotten a real job, because we can see the success that you've gotten so far. But yeah, but I would definitely try and get back, because I think, maybe if we were to come back and then think about some of the albums in more details and just get an understanding about that. But it was good just getting sort of an overview of your career.
Absolutely.
And everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I appreciate taking the time today and stuff.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel.
but most importantly, to press the notification bell so that you can be notified when we do have a new interview. Loads to come, but thanks a lot for watching.
I begin to